Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Freeman Files here on the J Free 906 podcast. Mike and Seth here with me tonight, and we are going to be talking Expedition Bigfoot, the season 8 finale. What'd you guys think of it? You saw it last night?
Excellent. Absolutely excellent.
Over too soon. It was so good.
Yeah.
Every episode of the season, right from the beginning, just kept ramping up. Great finish. Just like seasons past, it leaves me waiting for the results of a lot of stuff. So, it always feels a little soon because we have to wait on so much data, but it was really good. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't turn down one extra episode just to go over data.
Right.
And analysis of data that they collected.
Because
they got a lot. They collected a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say that too, that last year I feel we got robbed in last season that we didn't get the data analysis at the end. And then this year, I sure hope we do, because there was a ton of it. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we go along tonight, but there was a lot of data taken. And I tell you, I wrote my description and the thumbnail. Well, the thumbnail just says season 8 finale review, but my description for the show tonight, talks about has Bigfoot, Expedition Bigfoot season 8 made me a believer? And my answer to that is I think it has. After all of, I know, right? I've always said I've been on the fence with it. And all of that, but I wrote that saying, after all the evidence that the Expedition Bigfoot team has collected this season, I am not sure how anyone can still doubt the existence of this hide and seek champion. The only thing we're lacking now is an actual body or physical encounter, and I think that day is coming. And here's the question I wanted to throw out as we get started here tonight with all of you guys in the chat. Oh, wait a minute. Why did the season stop? Weather okay and a lot of action. Definitely lacked the data explanation last year. Yes. Simon, I don't know.
That's a question for the Discovery Channel.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure they would love to share that. It's probably all, because it wasn't one year. It was like we were just kept waiting for when's the show going to start. And I feel like it was kind of like streaming services was pushing dates back. So I feel like, who knows? This is as good as any, but I think it all comes down to just how the business works.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. That's unfortunate, but I think so.
They have zero say in any of that. So
I
think that's why groups like ours are important. Like, not just us, but like everybody that talks about the show online. Because I think, was it Maria that was saying, hey, like let us know what you think of the show. Like we need that positive feedback to keep the show up, to show that there's interest. So
actually that does affect it. I think that came into play it wasn't in Alaska. It was the one before that. Northern California.
One of them, they had to have a permit to be in the area. They came upon a guy cutting trees. I think it was just, he was doing maintenance, getting trees off the road. And you heard him say, you guys are not supposed to be here. And they said, oh, we got permits. And it was back when Ronnie was on the show.
Right. And also there was that time when they were tracking what they thought was a Bigfoot.
They had to stop.
And they had to stop because they came to the border of the lands that they weren't allowed to go into.
Yeah, then they were thinking, maybe does Bigfoot know, that this...
he does, for sure.
Safe zone.
Can't
get me.
Can't get me now. Yeah, exactly. Standing over there going, yeah. So, but I wanted to throw this question out for everyone in the chat tonight. We've seen videos from encounter people that have had sightings. We've seen videos on TV or on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. We've seen photographs on all of those, and they're generally fuzzy and blurry. And most of the time, we don't believe those. We're like, nope, it's fake. Nope, it's not good. Nope, we don't see anything. And I hate that. Whenever somebody has to draw a red circle in the woods, the picture of the trees that they're showing, they have to draw a red circle around it for me to see it. Don't bother, because that you're wasting my time now by drawing a heaven. If I have to look for that red circle to see it, now I'm trying to look at this image in the bushes to see if there's something there. Anyway, let me ask you this question for all of you watching tonight, and most of you like this show, or you wouldn't be here. But Expedition Bigfoot. But if, because of that feeling that we have towards everybody's personal stuff that goes out there that we don't really have a tendency to believe, if Expedition Bigfoot Team actually came down with a Sasquatch standing right 25 feet away from Russell and he recorded it, or they found a body, would you believe it? If he had a photograph or a video of a Bigfoot standing right there, clear as day, would anyone actually believe it, or would they still say it was full of crap and they made it up?
There'd be so many people that still wouldn't believe it.
Oh yeah.
For me, I would believe it from this team. You know, if any of them said, "Hey, I had an encounter. This is real. This is not fabricated to my knowledge in any way," I would trust it. Especially, Russell. I don't think they're going to fake anything. I don't think they have faked anything. So yeah, for me, it was the first season of this show where they went in depth over the Patterson-Gimlin film, and that piqued my interest in it because I had long written it off with the documentaries debunking it, and then I went and watched Thinker Thunker and all these other great YouTubers and talked to you guys, and I realized, man, I thought the Patterson-Gimlin film is real, and for me, that's like the best thing. Now, since that video footage, I think Russell has the next best thing with this season, and what because I don't like what Jeff was saying, where if you have to point out, oh, here it is, that's going to be difficult for me to believe. On the other hand, if you're so close, those ones where it's people are real loud going, oh, what is that in the woods? If you're like, Bigfoot's going to hear you. It's going to know you're there from miles away. So I also don't buy those close-up videos. I think Patterson-Gimlin's the only true close-up video because of a very key detail. They were on horses. And they didn't have, electronic stuff like we have today. So I think Russell's the footage that they've gotten, he's so far away, he's up on a mountaintop from miles away, so he might even be out of that consciousness range to where Bigfoot can be aware of being watched. Point, because they are obviously alerted to camera and consciousness, I think. So those are kind of my thoughts. I think this is, somebody had said, I think Tom, he said this is the best evidence for him. I think that he had seen this season, and I agree.
I feel the same way. Yep. So that was my question.
I think,
go
ahead. So I've been collecting quotes from Dr. Gary Nolan. Some people may know who he is. He's the one that said, "I believe the data." That's where you start. You start with what's been collected. I know some people don't think that firsthand witness is data, but it's a good indication of where to look. That's what Jane Goodall had said. So I believe the data. I don't know what the conclusion is yet, because we haven't actually gotten the body. We haven't done, the level of analysis that needs to be done on a physical specimen. But one of the other quotes that Dr. Nolan gave was, one anecdote is just an anecdote. 10,000 anecdotes starts to become data.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm seeing is after listening to 2,300 firsthand accounts, the similarities that you pick up on are the details that aren't the type of thing people would think to make up or get correct. There's a lot of stuff that the original call them the original investigators on this type of stuff. They used to keep certain things close to the vest. They didn't tell people what to look for. They didn't tell people that that if you see a line of footprints, there shouldn't be a big straddle between the footprints if it looks like they're walking a tightrope. They kept that kind of information to themselves so they could pick out a fake if they needed to. And it's getting to the point where that there's a lot of that stuff out there, but even still, you listen to the people talk about their experiences and the trauma that is often associated with that. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a traumatic encounter, a scary encounter. The trauma comes from seeing something you've been told your whole life is a fairy tale and is fake. It's not real. Anybody that believes it's a kook, they're crazy. You must be crazy. That is hard for people to reconcile with.
Yep.
And then they get obsessed with wanting to see another one. And that, it can go south for some people.
Yep.
So anyway, I think there's too much consistency within the data, within the reports, for it not to be something. It has to be something. Problem is, what it appears to be is not just a flesh and blood creature that has all of the same kind of capabilities we know exist in the animal kingdom now. It has other abilities beyond what we know that aren't explainable given our current science.
Yep.
And it's just that last little bit that makes it really tough to say, well, it's just an animal. Well,
Yep.
yeah, it is, but how do you explain these things where they, seem to be able to disappear, or they're associated with the lights down low on the ground, not UAPs up in the sky, but lights down low on the ground. I mean, there's just stuff that doesn't fit our normal, what we would consider normal animal type stuff, or their ability to just disappear, or, make no sound. You can see them, but they make no sound, or you can't see them and you can hear their footfalls. Stuff like that still just kind of is on the edge of, what we understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm.
I agree with you 100%. That's the thing. And it's kind of dragged me along, as Tom said, this season, he has found more convincing than, and I'm the same way. Yeah. Not well. Yeah. The backstory on it. Yeah. That has been the most, as we've talked about before, the Patterson Gimlin film has been the most scrutinized film like that of its kind, by everybody. Has tried to debunk that, and they still have not been able to do it after all these years. And so it still stands the test of time. So yeah, this season really has, and I really believe that we're getting very close to the point where they're going to have actual, video of one standing there. And I really want to, that's why I asked that question, if people would believe it or not, if it
What,
came from this team.
do you think Bigfoot will be any part of maybe disclosure? Like, there's a lot of UFO disclosure talk coming out, and I bring it up just because of the connection that UFOs and Bigfoots have. And, a lot of people say that the government knows. And like we were talking about earlier, with these certain lands being designated protected, is that some people,
right?
say it's for Bigfoot, or Bigfoot takes advantage of it. So I'm kind of in the camp that the government does know, and that if we do get UFO disclosure, I think things like Bigfoot will kind of be put out as well. So it might not, and maybe even Prometheus and other, this, like I've always kind of thought, like with Skinwalker Ranch, that show is part of disclosure, maybe. Maybe not. The team members are so independent, so it's hard to think that they're like working hand in hand with the government. But you know what I mean? Where it's like, maybe the government will take advantage of programs like that because of visibility and trust with public. Not that they work together, but yeah, I kind of suspect maybe the government will give us some insight. But I don't know. I'm usually wrong.
No, that's all good stuff, and I hope you're right. We'll see what happens, but I'm sure that the upright walker sensed the LiDAR, and that's why it turned around. I think that they were doing really well, and I have unfortunately today, I did get. I was preparing for the show, and I had to run off to take care of a little emergency. And I did not get the video all edited that I wanted to put together for tonight's podcast. I do have a couple little clips, and hopefully I'll be able to bring that up if you bear with me, folks, tonight as we go along here. But so let's jump into it. So this particular episode was called Target Identified. And as just spoke about the video that was captured again, this time by the unit that they had in the air, but also from the drone that flew over. But we'll get to that as we go along here. But that's what it was named after. And you heard Bryce saying, Target Identified, Target Identified. So was a good name for the episode. But so let's jump into it, shall we?
Yep.
All right. So, I gotta. There we go. Add this in there. There we go. So the finale review right off the bat. You remember last week, and that was one of those episodes where, when Russell came upon what I was calling the Bigfoot battle arena, that it seemed as though there was a fight that took place in this thing, and it sounded to Russell as if it was a bear when he first heard it. Yet he walked into it anyway because he said he had to know. And so he walks into this area, and when he got there, the sounds were gone, but the remnant of the battle was still there. The ground was kicked up all over the place, broken branches everywhere, little stubs of branches broken off with little stubs sticking out like spikes off the tree, blood on the tree, blood on the branches, blood on the ground. Something, whether it was a Bigfoot or not, something had a battle there. Two creatures were fighting. And making a lot of noise and left blood traces behind. And so when he got those blood samples, Bryce sent them off immediately to this lady right here, Christina Burns. And Christina is a molecular biologist, and she took a look at these. Now, a couple of things, and I'm going to read from my notes here a little bit because there was a lot she put out. And you had to kind of listen to it a couple of times to really pull off there what she was trying to say about these samples. One of the first things she said was that this, and this was, there was because of the time constraints and getting this information, she did what's called a fragmented analysis. Because of time restraints, they ran it against known DNA markers, present and absent type of thing, she called it. If a hit from a bear family, then she would have some species in that family. So what she did was she ran it up against regular animals, mammals, to see what had come out. It came back with no known. It wasn't a bear, wasn't a mountain lion, wasn't a cougar, wasn't none of those things. It was not an animal that came back from sequence or from that blood sample analysis, from that fragmented analysis. Now, she did indicate something very important that everybody needs to know, because she did run it against human, and it came back 99% human. Now, with that said, she said because of this fragmented analysis and not doing the sequencing of it, that she could tell if it was a bear, but not be able to tell you what species it was. Okay. But it wasn't a bear. It wasn't a mammal like that. She ran it against human. It did come back 99% human. But again, many, I think they talked about going back in evolution, if you are an evolutionist. But going back and looking at all of these different species, they all had 99% human DNA. Okay. So even primates, there's just that 1% that changes it from being a human to something else. So she said it did come back human, but not being able to identify a species. Okay, so that's important, because right off the bat, people are hearing, okay, human, well, then it's human. It's not a bear, or it's not a Bigfoot or anything. That
that result has come back before in other investigations, and the problem is people usually immediately then dismiss it. Mm-hmm. And like she said, you can't dismiss it because it's close to human. It's not 100% human. So it could be something similar. And I think, considering how close we are to primates, and chimpanzee, I think is one we're closest to, mm-hmm. You can't just dismiss it and think that it's actually a human. It may be something near that. And until they do that final analysis, the detail analysis, we won't know for sure. But definitely, I've heard enough of explanation from like Dr. Meldrum and some other folks that know that they're like, those are the ones that we really need to look at very closely, because it's coming back in the initial report as human. we've got to dig into that even deeper because those are the ones that are likely to provide the most information.
Yep. Yeah. And that's because she qualified that very clearly. She said when she did the human, she did get a hit. Doesn't mean it was human blood. Just means traces of human DNA, 99%. Same as other primates. They talked about relic hominoid
Hominid.
theory,
Yep.
the evolutionary chain, and the lost branch. There has been some researchers that have said that Bigfoot could very well be the lost branch of the evolutionary chain of hominids. So um, that relic um, step away, that one lost chain or whatever. So they got to do the sequencing. The sequencing has to be done before they're going to be able to specifically say if this is human blood or not. And I really hope we find out what that is. If they rob us of that information this season, I'm going to write a letter to Bryce, and so will a lot of other people probably, and go, "What the hell? We want this information."
Yeah.
Well, if they're not going to air it, maybe Russell can come on and talk about it.
There you go. Exactly. I really hope that's the case, Russell. If you're watching, or if you watch the show, please, we need to know what that sequencing comes back, or how it comes back. So, very important. I thought. Seth, did you want to add something there?
No, you guys nailed it. I kind of wonder, like, with the Denisovans and Neanderthal, like, is this, like you were saying, like another missing link in this chain of different humanoids, or humans? But yeah, but then, or is it more of like a primate, like just an unknown primate, but is coming up human because, like you guys were saying, everything is very close to human, and it's very few little things that it's just such a, I don't know, it's beyond me to articulate the things that it makes you think about, but it's crazy. It's
yeah.
Well,
it's that 1% that can change it from being a human or being a Neanderthal.
Yeah. I want to know. Is this totally unknown? And if it is, what is it? Is it more primate than man? And the DNA? I don't know. Yeah.
See, that was the difference. They talked about Neanderthal. Neanderthal. I thought, is it Neanderthal? That's the way they pronounce it.
Yeah, they pronounce it tall. I feel like growing up, I always read and heard Neanderthal, but
yeah, Neanderthal. That is not,
I don't want to offend any Neanderthals.
Like that commercial, the Geico commercial. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely part Neanderthal. So
yeah. So even that 1%, because they're 99%. So even that 1% changes it. So keep that in mind, because she's not saying it's human. It doesn't mean it's human blood, just traces. So
she's not saying it's Bigfoot, but it's Bigfoot.
So that's key to remember. All right. So as we move along, so hopefully we'll get that information. I really, really, really hope we do. And if not, I'll be all over Russell. He already probably thinks I bother him too much as it is. This makes me think of the episode of Skinwalker Ranch where they find a mysterious animal in the creek, and 1 year later they are still waiting to find out the DNA results. I know, right? Yeah, of that dire wolf.
Yeah,
was it a dire wolf or not? We don't know still. Yeah, maybe they do by now. And you know what? Let's ask, because I was going to say that.
Yeah.
One of the I got a couple of packages today, care packages, and I'm going to take just a moment here to talk about it. That I really want to thank two people, Tatiana and Maya, sent me some stuff, and I really appreciate it. I got this travel tumbler here today, and it says, "What in the crap?" Who says that? It makes no sense.
Travis.
What the crap?
And high strangeness. Cool. She's not here yet. It says high strangeness, and who says that all the time is James Keenan.
Brandon says that too.
And Brandon, yep, yeah, exactly.
Oh,
And over
yeah.
here it says, on this side it says, release the Kraken, and then laser space cannons, and that's actually
Yes.
the
yeah.
Oh, it's the lasers.
Yeah, with the
with those
cutouts.
with the cutouts. Yeah, isn't that cool?
Oh,
That's
That is really
awesome.
cool. So yeah,
I
she
love
sent
the
that
gold
today.
on black. That is
And
cool.
Tatiana sent, I got a care package from her. So I got the Bigfoot, a little stuffed animal Bigfoot here.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah, and some books and stuff. She sent a whole
Oh,
bunch
and it's a
of,
female too.
yeah,
It's
it must
Patty.
be, it's got the, it's Patty,
Patty.
right? So anyway, but while I was saying that, or made me think of that, is that we have to ask Pete Kelsey, because Pete Kelsey and Eric Bard are coming on the podcast April 3rd. So many of you may have heard
Ooh.
that last night if you were watching the Curse of Oak Island stuff we were talking about. But Pete
That's exciting.
Kelsey and Eric Bard, April 3rd. That's a Thursday at 7:30 p.m. You guys are going to want to catch that one if you do care at all about UFOs, UAPs, and Skinwalker Ranch. Because I was actually waiting for a particular slide to talk about that, but I kind of got ahead of myself there a little bit.
Well, it's Skinwalker Ranch and Phenomenon that got us into.
It got me
Expedition
talking
Bigfoot.
about Bigfoot. It's all
Right?
Mike's fault. Mike Owen, you're the fault of that, because you said, hey, when you're out there at Phenomenon, you really need to check out the Dr. Maria Mayer and Russell and listen to their, and I
Mhm.
did, and sold me.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then you were like, "I'm going to cover this show," and I thought, "Oh well, I should watch this show Jeff's going to talk about." And then this show's awesome.
Yes.
Bigfoot's real. I was sold like that.
Took me
I
a
just
while.
never really thought about it.
Yeah.
You know?
This gentleman here, Jairus Doverspike, surveillance. He's an aerospace engineer and developer, and he put together a really cool, that Bryce wanted something that they could use for surveillance out here for the nighttime. Now, if you guys remember, they had that after I'm going to call it a Bigfoot fight for rather of anything else to call it. After that Bigfoot fight that Russell came upon, they all gathered right after that because they were looking for Russell and his cameraman Josh out in the woods, and they finally found him and everything. And so they had a little get together. They decided to gather together and then work together as a team and go check. I thought they were going to go back to that battle site. They did not. Well, whether or not they did or not, we didn't see it. They didn't They didn't air it. But what they did do was work together in that central area and came up with a plan of something to do. And they needed this particular type of surveillance for that. And I'm glad that they did. Now, what this gentleman, Jairus, put together was a little device that you see here. And this thing is tethered down to the ground on 3 points and is hanging in the air by a balloon, because they wanted to keep something up there that was quiet, that they could be able to, because we've talked about this before about Bigfoot being able to sense electronics and all this kind of stuff, get it up in the air, get it away, but get it up high enough to where you can really survey the woods, but make it quiet. And we'll kind of, expand upon that here in just a minute. So he put together this thing. This thing had 4 cameras, an IR night vision camera, a thermal camera, and 2 visual cameras, one for a narrow range or field and one with a wide field. So they could zoom in on stuff. It had the PTZ, the point, or the
Pan, tilt, zoom.
and tilt zoom. Thank you. I got tongue tied there for a second.
Hmm.
And then this is the slide I was going to wait to talk about, because who's that from? VCTO Labs. Who have we seen from?
Oh,
VCTO
nice
Labs?
catch. Wow.
Wow.
Really?
Pete Kelsey right off the bat, even though we didn't see Pete around. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
Huh.
yeah.
I
Interesting.
did not catch
I
that.
think he must have had something to do with this. So,
Well, the odds are good. If the drone's involved,
yes.
so is Pete.
Yeah, and so is Pete. And Pete's been working with this team before. So there you
Yes,
go.
yes.
So yeah, I caught that. I saw that on the side there in VCTO Labs. So Pete Kelsey. So that's when I was going to wait and make my announcement that he was coming on the podcast with Eric Bard, but that's coming up. Now, what this was designed to do, if you didn't catch it on the show, and most of you probably did, but the camera that's being hung by the balloon would spot something, and if it was found to be walking a humanoid type figure walking on 2 legs that would initiate the drone to automatically go find it and get a camera on it, a thermal on it right
It
away.
was pretty wide zone, right? Like 6-8 miles. Is that what it was?
Well, they said it could travel 8 miles. I don't think.
Oh, okay.
I think
that
they
was a
were down to
range.
about a
Okay.
3-mile. I think
8
they were
mile.
within about a 3-mile range.
Cool.
But it had about a 8-mile range on it. Yes.
Mhm.
So if they pick something up, boom, off this, the thermal would go on this drone and head to that area. And as you see there, the little graph that they drew up, it would find Bigfoot, right? And so here's that area that they were in, kind of working there. And then they had the trip line that they had set up at the beginning of the season on the very first episode, but we had never seen anything. Nothing had tripped it. Nothing had gone off. Oh, Robert says you got the same mug. Really? The same one as this? That's pretty cool. I know. I love this thing. It's so awesome. And this, oh, by the way, it was the laser work was done by blue6laser.com.
Nice.
Yeah, Blue 6 Laser Engraving does the laser work, like on this cribbage board from Oak Island. It's got all the signatures of all the people from Oak Island on it. So,
Nice.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Fancy.
I get these gifts from people, man. It's just so awesome, right? But yeah, anyway, all right. As I digress once again. So they've got all these 3 areas here. They're going to send it out. They know that this target area that they're really concentrating on, they know something is happening in that area. They want to kind of cover it in 3 points and then have the trip line behind them, which I think was a good plan to put together.
Yeah, I like how they have every team member out on their own to kind of, they can see from above and flesh something out, like. Yeah, Tom had put in the chat, did you think any Bigfoot were reporting UFO or UAP sightings? Which I thought was funny when we saw the balloon. That was my first thought. I was like, it's a human spy balloon. Bigfoot's going to be going back and telling us, friends, humans got balloons on us now. Okay. But it was a pretty beautiful and simple solution. I was not expecting a balloon. And as soon as I saw a balloon hanging, I thought, oh, of course, like silent. You don't have to use any energy to keep it up there,
right?
Because wasn't there one season where they had drones tethered up?
Yeah, those were pretty impressive. They were tethered drones, so they could stay aloft almost indefinitely because they were getting power through a very small light cable, and they could detach that cable when they needed to go look at something.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I imagine that would be pretty noisy the whole time.
Yes, it would still be noisy because you still got those, buzzing blades of a drone. Kind of sounds like a swarm of hornets.
So I love that they have the combination of silent, monitoring the whole time, and then when they need it, when the computer sees, like Jeff said, sees the human bipedal movement, boom! Now you got the noise. Yeah, we're coming after you.
Yes. I don't know how Bryce gets these contacts and
right?
these people, but man, he's always got cutting edge stuff.
Yeah, I have a feeling that it comes by way of people seeing the show and going, "Oh, I got just the thing they need," and getting a hold of them in some way, or maybe getting a hold of Prometheus and saying, "Hey, I got just what you need for." And then, like the robot dog that went into the tunnel in the cave system. I mean, that was pretty amazing in itself. So what I'm doing is, while we're talking here, is I'm trying to advance this video that I didn't get a chance to put together for everybody. I'm actually running it now, but I do get a little bit, I won't say get in trouble, but I do occasionally have issue with not so much copyright, but legalities by running too much video. So I have to be very, very careful about how much of it I run. Last week, I got a little overzealous there with running a little bit longer, running over my 9-10 second piece. And then next thing you know, I'm getting notices that I got to, edit certain parts of it out. But one of the things that I did notice here, and I'm going to show this real quick here. If you notice, this is something that has always bothered me about these guys working in the field. I know that when they're walking along in the woods, they need to be using flashlights because they don't want to jab an eye out in a tree. Russell even talked about that when we had him on the podcast before. But they have to, when they're walking along, they have to be very careful of, being hurt or walking off a cliff or something like that.
Right.
In the dark. So they do have to use flashlights from time to time. But it's the radios that bothers me sometimes. And I noticed too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Hey,
Russell, what do you see over there? And Russell's going, crap, the volume's up too loud,
Yeah.
Trying to be quiet. But you notice what's in Biko's ear.
Yep, I saw
Now,
that.
that's the first time that I have seen any of them use an earpiece. And then when he was talking into his lapel like a Secret Service agent, and he was, yeah, I got it right here. That is what I would think, keep one ear open, to hear sounds around you,
Mhm.
and then get that thing in your ear so you can, be able to do your radio communications and not be broadcasting it out to Bigfoot, while he's there.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really happy to see him using that.
Do you think they've always done it like this, but we've just never seen it, or they've
No.
always? Because it's
I
always
don't
bugged
think
me
so.
too. And I
Yeah.
noticed last night I had that thought where, okay, good. They're not just blasting all that radio chatter out into the woods. They've got an in-ear. But you're saying you think that's just Nico.
It's just Biko. Yeah. I don't,
Or Biko,
Maria,
sorry.
I've never seen
My apologies,
Maria
Biko.
or Russell or Ronnie for that matter ever use one.
Yeah.
They've always just had the walkie-talkie in their hand. And even if you turn the volume down on that thing, it's still going to be heard. And then you're
Sure.
trying to talk back into it really quiet and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, why bother if it's already squelched as you click it and all that?
Yeah.
It's too late to whisper.
Exactly. So,
But,
yeah. But they got a
Good
really
catch.
good catch. They sent this. The drone was up there. The guys are working in the field. They should all be using night vision helmets. Yeah, I agree. I really feel that would be a good thing to have. Now, in this particular case, they want to scare up Bigfoot and make him get on the move, because they want to be able to capture him by the thermal footage, and they do. And so Biko goes off. He's hearing some sounds. He heads off into the tundra to see what he can find. And then when they find this target, they get Maria and Russell to also start moving towards the target, to get it to continue to move. And so they're moving across there, and they see it. I'm trying to get to that point here in the video. I'm gonna have to kind of let it run for a second. Go ahead, Seth.
I thought that the computer would have picked up the movement quicker. And I kept thinking, okay, when's the drone going to activate? I don't know if it was editing or if it really did take a minute, but maybe that's a good thing that the computer actually analyzed it enough to go, no, not yet.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, there it is. It's definitely human. Because, yeah, from the very first time we saw it, I thought, okay, now they're going to send the drone will go. But it seemed to have taken maybe just a couple more seconds than I expected.
Yeah,
Which
it did. And how does it know? That's
Right.
the thing I don't understand is how does it know? I mean, it's must be a computer is looking at the thermal image and trying to decide if this thing is walking on two legs, is bipedal. So I mean, they do have pretty good software to be able to discern this kind of thing, but they are able to figure that out, and that's what triggers that. And it finally does, like you said, it took a while. But it finally does trigger, and then sure enough, the helo or the drone takes off and then flies over the scene. I'm almost there, and I wanted to show this real quick here.
Pete Kelsey has used his drones on Skinwalker Ranch. He's mapped Alcatraz. He's tracking down Bigfoot. What a cool resume that guy has.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk to him again. He really does. He's got so much going right now. He's a very busy guy. He truly is. But you've seen, one of the things, and I'll go ahead and talk about this because I'm not going to really be able to show too much of this as it is, but they have, when they were able to watch this bipedal figure walking in the woods, they were able to capture it by the first thermal image. But then when the drone took off and headed over there, they were able to get on it for a moment, and then it disappeared. And that's the point where I'm saying that it must have heard. It must have heard the drone flying overhead. What's your thoughts on it? You think it did? I do. I have a feeling that it heard it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I mean, we've talked about this before, where you're in their living room,
Mhm.
so you hear an odd sound sitting in your living room. You're going to pick up on that pretty quick, and they're not they're not quiet, and it's a pretty
Nope.
pretty distinct sound that
Nope.
the drone makes with those high speed propellers. I have no doubt that it heard that.
Yep. Here's, I think, when they first pick it up, they first capture it. Coming up here in just a second. I got to stop this for just a moment there. Right there. That's it right there is what they're seeing. That's the figure before it really does anything. They're watching it for a moment right there. Yep. And he's like, "What is that?" And he goes, and he's looking at it. And he's like, "What is that thing right there? Is that a, they're of interest?" But then it gets up and it actually moves. And I'm gonna play this again here real quick. All right, here we go. Okay, there they're looking at it, and here in just a moment, right here. Now watch it. And it moved off. Okay, so it's definitely moving. Now, one of these clips, and I'll see if I can get to the right one, you can actually see its step over some branches. So it's not a bear. It's definitely not a bear. So the only thing it would be if it's not if it's not a Bigfoot, if it's not a human, that's the only other thing it could be, would be a human.
Yeah.
Or a cryptid like a Bigfoot or something like that. I mean, it's simply that. There's a little bit more. Okay, here we go. Right here, again, you're looking at this thing right here in the center of that green figure right there. Now it's not moving at that. Yep, see there it goes. That's where it takes.
Oh
that
yeah,
step.
that's a step. Step. Yeah.
That's pretty crazy right there, isn't it? I mean, and then here's another one. I'm gonna go back and run this for a second. Okay, so there's that. Here comes that step right there. And then watch this. And then you see it continuing to step. It turns for a moment. So, folks, this. And again, I go back to when Russell captured that daytime video that he saw that we showed last week of that creature, that thing that was all brown from head to toe, walking in the daylight down there on that path. This is some amazing capture right here.
Yeah, and keep in mind too, like when I saw in the chat when we were discussing that daytime capture earlier, people were saying, I'm guessing they got to talk to Russell at Phenomicon that, or maybe even after. I mean, it was on the show. It must have been on the show because they were saying he said that he had eyes on that thing for a long, long time before the camera got to it. So. Like we're just seeing, how like we're sitting here analyzing a picture of a picture. I feel like the camera person too, like they're, like a lot of times it takes them so long to where they miss, we get excited over a second of what we do capture. And there's like 10 seconds of what wasn't captured while Russell's trying to direct them to it. So it makes me believe him even more because we're buying into it, or at least a lot of us are, I think, based on just these little fragments. And yet the boots on the ground people like Russell, he's got it locked in his binoculars for, maybe a minute while he's, and his Facebook Live. Okay. Yeah. So he's there locked in, looking at it clearly, directing the camera. No, here. Okay. Finally catches it. And then the camera, thank goodness, caught it in those last brief moments before it walks away. But so, they've captured, Mike said human experience isn't considered data, but you have to consider the data is a fragment of the whole experience, right? It's not all of it, because I don't know, trying to just articulate it, I struggle because it's impressive. And I get very excited putting myself in Russell's situation. How do you not sound like a crazy person everywhere you go? I've seen Bigfoot.
I know, right?
Yeah, in my binoculars, I had
Yeah, and he
Yeah.
did. He watched it for a long time, and that's, you know, you would have to think that at this point Russell is a believer, even though he never says that on the show. You
And I
never hear him
respect
say,
that.
you
I
know.
respect that him and Maria, they have their, threshold that the data and stuff
Mhm.
has to meet.
Sure.
Makes me respect them more because yeah, I'm like you, Jeff. I'm like, how can you not believe, guys? Come on, come on. Yeah.
I'm of that belief now because I mean,
Mhm.
it's just the evidence is just too overwhelming at this point. It really truly is. And so you saw those little clips that I was showing there, a little bit of that, and then there's also the interceptor drone. That last little clip I showed is the one that actually keyed the interceptor drone to take off.
Mhm.
And that's what I've got up now. You can see the red over here. It's all because it's very red, the scene of it. But it's great evidence. Now, the only, like I said, if it's not a Bigfoot, the only other thing it could be would be a human being.
Mhm.
And yet, you wonder why would a human, be going through all this effort. Here it is here again. You see it moving around there like it's not sure, and they're converging on it. Everybody is heading to that area. They're telling them where it is, and that's when Bryce is going target identified, get over there. So everybody's converging on it. They want this thing to continue to move, so they can continue to follow it, and then once the drone gets right overhead and finally does get a look at it, it disappears. Now, we've talked about that before. How is that possible? Is it simply a matter of this creature knows how to camouflage itself in such a way that it now is not only not visible to the eye, to visible light, but it's also invisible to thermal and infrared as well? I don't know what to make of that. And Mike and you and I have
Yeah.
gone back and forth on this, quite a bit.
It's hard. It's
It,
hard to explain. I mean, I've heard a lot of theories. We've talked about this. What if it just dropped down to ground level and started moving in the spider crawl?
yeah.
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
looking for something upright bipedal, and it's less than 12 inches off the ground on all fours. So
Mhm.
it's feasible that they could do that, but thermal should have still seen it. And so when you've got thermal on that area, I know that there's vegetation, but you can see right there, you can see through some of the vegetation.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So for it to disappear completely
Right there.
from
Boom.
visual and thermal,
Could they have like their own tunnel systems kind of like built maybe strategically throughout
yeah,
forest where they
yeah,
know like
Mhm.
yeah,
or maybe
that's
take
been talked
advantage of
about is that they use tunnels, but why wouldn't we see those?
I don't know.
You know, that's
Hmm. Well, shucks. That's where we get into the woo-woo because it's
I
like
know, right? Here we go down the rabbit hole.
yeah, and the UFOs showed up and just picked up their friends. Like someone in the chat said, I like to think of Bigfoot as aliens that are here to go camping. Maybe
Yeah,
that's what it is.
yeah.
I don't know.
I like that
Uh,
story you told us about that the movie Smallfoot.
yeah. During I work from home, and during lunch, my family was watching a movie called Smallfoot, where I'd never seen it. It's an animated movie, came out a couple of years ago, but a Yeti from a Yeti community up high in the mountains, he sees a human, a Smallfoot, and goes to tell everybody, "Oh my God, there's a Smallfoot," and nobody believes him. So he makes a determination to go find proof of Smallfoot, and along the way, he finds other Yetis that are outcasts and believe him because they too have seen Smallfoot. And my wife laughed and said, "Do you think those Yetis have a podcast where they talk about the possibility of humans being real?" and but yeah, it was a really good movie for anyone with kids or that likes cartoons. Smallfoot, definitely, it was a fun flip
Yep.
on the usual,
Brilliant.
humans trying to prove Yetis. It
Mhm.
was the Yetis trying to prove.
Yeah, they got a
human existence.
podcast. It's
Yeah.
yep, the
There's
Bigfoot 906 podcast.
they
Yep.
got small feet and they use magic, light up with electricity, because I imagine, I don't know, does Bigfoot understand totally what we are, or are we an unknown to them as well? Do we confuse them as much as they confuse us? Are we overlapping? Maybe we're not even like in the same dimension. We're just kind of overlapping. I don't know. And every time they run the CERN, it collides a little bit more. But then how do you account for the just history of Yeti and Bigfoot, before technology and all that? So I think I lean more towards the material of they are a humanoid version of ourselves that we just lost contact with.
Could very
maybe
well
by
be.
their choice. I don't know.
Maybe. Who knows, right? They might be way smarter than we are.
And I wonder too, like, do they have abilities that if we were to interact with them, that it would kind of like remind us to be maybe we can be telepathic the way that they are. Because for the survivor man to have received what he said was a telepathic communication to his brain, I guess it's not just like certain special humans that have it. We must all have it, but it's just kind of dormant. So I wonder, like, what would interactions with creatures like Bigfoot and UFOs spark in us? What powers do we have?
One of the most popular podcasts in America right now is the telepathy tapes about the nonverbal autistic kids that appear to all be telepathic and be able to talk to each other that way. It's pretty compelling information. There's stuff that they know they've taught each other because we're not smart enough to know that they can learn. It's pretty compelling stuff. So as we continue to learn more, I mean, I think quantum physics is going to explain a lot of this away. And it's just going to be, of course we can do that. I mean, it's here's the math, and it was discovered in 2027 or something like that, and we'll be looking back on it thinking, gosh, we were so dumb before that. Can you believe we thought we couldn't talk with our minds before?
Right. Well, and I'm going to take a moment here to go down a quick little rabbit hole just for a moment. But I just watched an episode of a podcast that was from the Monroe Institute. It was episode number 38, and it talked about I got to look at the name of it. It was a great little podcast that I caught, and it talked about different things in it. One of them was, how does an animal, and they were talking about people setting up these experiments. Okay, say you have a cat or a dog at home, and that dog or cat is very in tune with one particular member of the family. If it might be the husband or it might be the wife, whatever it is. Okay. And that person is gone from the house for a time. And then all of a sudden you'll see that animal, dog or cat, is sitting by the door and might be there for some time before it heard the vehicle coming down the driveway or coming down the road. But it knows that person is coming home. How in the heck is that possible? How does that communication happen? Same thing with, like, and I know how many people out here in the chat have had this happen. You're thinking about a particular person, somebody that you were very close to in your life, but you're now separated by hundreds of miles or thousands of miles, and you haven't seen each other in a while or whatever, but you're thinking about that person. Then you get a phone call and it's that person calling you. How does that sort of thing happen? It does happen. It's happened to me many times, that kind of thing. So Susan Wall said, my dogs do it. How, so there is that mental connection that happens between us and animals and us and other people. It's crazy. And this podcast kind of delved into that a bit. It was really good. But anyway, all right. Quick little rabbit hole there, but that's another subject. And we're going to have Shannon DeSalvo and I are going to get into some of this. Her and I've been talking about that.
Great.
We're going to have a discussion, and maybe Seth will bring you along, and Mike, if you want to join us or something. But Seth, I know you would probably love to be in talking about some stuff like that, right?
So yeah.
It's really amazing information. Plants. Yeah, there you go. Jan talking about plants. I mean, We are all connected in some way, are we not? Okay, let's jump back into the show. They've got that line, that trip line that they had set up, and as they are chasing this thing and it disappears from the thermal, then they finally get a hit on this trip line.
First one we've seen
The
of the
first one
season.
we've seen. Yeah, they get target identified, and it is bipedal, and there happens to be 3.
Oh,
And they show this twice, and it goes by this one particular sensor. I think it was like this one right here or something. One of them was blinking. I don't know. And again, this is artist rendition. We don't know how true to form this is, but one of them was blinking, and it picked up these 3 objects that were all bipedal walking past it. So Biko and Bryce took off going after it, trying to find it and see what they could come up with. In the meanwhile, as Russell and Maria, Dr. Mayer, are working through the woods, they come across some very interesting things. And as you can see right here, this little doodad right here, that stands out. Like, I mean, if you're walking around, with your flashlight, and again, this is why they were, obviously, it's a good time to be using the flashlights and making noise, because they were trying to flush this thing out that they were chasing. But you see that little thing right there, and this is one of those things that, how do we explain not only one, but a couple of these, several of these being out in the woods? Could a human have made it? Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, a human could have made these. But why? And then they come across a tree structure. And then they find another tree structure. And this particular tree structure really kicks them, upside the head, because of what they find at this tree structure, which is all the bones. Now, something Mike and I were talking about before we started the show tonight was that if somebody were to say, okay, we know these guys are out there in the woods, we know that they're going to be looking for Bigfoot because they've been going around here and talking to people, talking to locals and stuff like that. Let's go out there and see what we can do to fake them out and put something in the woods. These tree structures and this right here would have been an awful lot of trouble to go through to try to fool somebody.
Mhm.
And all these bones, because you remember, if you listen closely, when they were talking about these bones, they were from all different types of, old ones and newer ones. There was some that had been there laying on the ground for a long time, because you could tell by its, their condition of the bone itself. And then the newer ones that were more whitish and whatnot.
Mhm.
But look at the mass number of bones, and then this rib cage. This thing right here is amazing, because you can tell better in a daylight shot of it. Here's more bones on the ground. This whole area of the ground is all disturbed. What do you make of this? What do you think of something like this?
I think it's been there longer than the show, so I don't think it was a hoax specifically for the show. If it was humans, I don't think it was humans to fake out the show, because you look at the growth on those rings, and I feel like those rings were put in that position a couple seasons ago, at least, right?
Oh,
And
yeah. Oh, for sure.
Biko said it was pretty hard. He would use that material vine for bows. So Maria said, okay, so that would be difficult to take a lot of strength to weave together. So I think they've been there a long time. The structures are, if it's human, I don't get why an animal predator would use, because when I see all those bones, I think, oh, is there a mountain lion nearby that's been taking its kill here? But I don't know of any mountain lion that uses human man-made structures like that. There's a lot of, I don't know. I'm not like a professional outdoorsman, but I've done a lot of hiking and camping. I just never seen that in a man-made structure. Usually it would be like a small cave, or something the mountain lion would take an advantage of. But yeah, seeing all those bones, I thought, oh no, there's a predator, which, Bigfoot would certainly be, but I don't know. I don't think it's man-made. This is all Bigfoot. And I don't know if the bones are with the vines, it makes me think of, in addition to being signs, it's got some sort of ritual. Maybe they're warding off something. Maybe they're inviting something. The setting up of the bone, like that spinal column,
It's right here. I
feels
point.
it
Yeah.
feels more than just somebody having a snack. This feels like this has meaning to
Yeah.
to Bigfoot by those who made it and those who see it. But yeah,
This
I don't know.
is that spinal and the ribs right here hanging from this whatever this is.
Yeah, and the bones would be chewed on as well, Tom, to that point. Yeah, like
Mhm.
it's I don't
Right.
this is weird.
And why would an animal like a bear or a mountain lion or anything like that, why would it put that rib cage up in a tree and make a little shrine right here?
Yeah, and perfectly sure. Yeah, it's a shrine. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. It's just like the other stuff
Not
we've
gonna do
seen
that.
with the horns, the goat looking wooden head.
Mhm. Yeah, it's
Well,
not gonna go.
and
It's not gonna do that.
would let's just say the tree structure was made by a human. Why would a mountain lion then bring kills there
Correct.
to eat if it
Correct.
smells a human on all those branches?
Correct.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. It would
Nope.
go the other way.
It's not gonna have anything to do with that area.
No.
So that really, I mean, that whole portion of this thing, the bones and
What's creepier, that Bigfoot did that or that a group of humans did that?
Yeah.
Because if it's
there you
people
go.
and they're not joking
Yeah.
around,
What
but they're
Jan
doing
just said, the Blair Witch Project.
right. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know, like the FBI, isn't that their explanation back in the day for cattle mutilations? Oh, it's these satanic groups, you know,
Yes.
so maybe groups like this do exist that would go out and do rituals with bones. I don't know.
Maybe. And that's why, you know, I hate to put the kibosh on it, but it's like we cannot say that a human did not make these or a group of humans did not make this
No.
stuff. We cannot say that because we didn't see it being constructed. But boy, this area, they took a lot of evidence from this area.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, Biko took one of these. Look at the intricate work that's being done, and like you said, this wasn't done this season. This was done a long time ago, several seasons ago, because these things have continued to grow. These circles here, they go back the next day. Look at the interweaving of these vines. It's crazy how this all was put together, and it's linked. You now right here is this circle, but they're looking up. All of these guys are looking up here in the tree where it began. So it's coming down from way up here, and then making the circle. So, and they're all looking up here. They're looking up in the air. So that's, I mean, again, I go back to that whole thing about Russell's height. You know, he's at least 6 foot. He's or maybe a little taller than I am, and I'm 6 foot. So I mean, right around in that range someplace, and he's looking up in the air 2 more feet up higher. So again, you think, wow, this, you know, why would somebody put it up that high in a tree? But there's more of them, and these bones, you know, you see them in the daylight, and it's much better. Yeah, no tool marks on the wood to suggest anything pretty strong, not only placed but moved, and you know, and yeah, exactly,
good point.
on the tree branches and all of that stuff. And there's that rib cage that's hanging there on that little shrine looking thing, and then they find the footprints, and I tell you, these are
pretty. Yeah.
pristine.
You don't see that clear toe print just right off the bat. Usually, at least for me, others might see it, but for me, whenever they're like, "Look at this print," I'm like, "Where is what? Huh?"
Yeah.
But this is right away. I saw it.
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
that is an excellent print. Now they showed it what was supposed to be the second one, but it's not. It was actually the same one. They showed again, and I have another picture of it. But look at those toe, the big toe impression, and the next toe, and the next toe, and the next toe, and then you can see the whole heel and sole of the foot. I mean, that is a really, really good print. That's the same print, a little closer. That's the big toe hole or print right there. Um, amazing. These are amazing prints, and they're fresh.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, probably made, within a day of that particular them coming upon it, or maybe that night, the previous night, because they were chasing something through there. Maria gets out that scanner, that handheld scanner, and she's checking it out with that thing and getting it, the digital foot, or image of it very well. And then Russell did a couple casts that he took of that print after Dr. Mayer was done with it, and there's 2 more of those vine things. Okay, so with all of this information right here, what did Dr. I see Linda had said something about Dr. Mayer, Maria Mayer saying about a potluck. It was like a potluck, like they brought all the stuff to the one area to come and eat.
Yeah.
And it's like all these circles are made and around this area, so that as you're approaching it, you see one of these circles. Oh, hey, it's the feeding area. So let's go get something and we'll drag it in here and we'll all sit and have a little feast together.
Wedding venue. I like that
Yeah,
idea.
wedding venue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there Bigfoot hunters in the area? Maybe they made those as a gift for Bigfoot. Maybe. That's one thing we cannot say, is that they weren't made by human hands. I can understand what you're saying, but they took stuff. I would be horrified if they desecrated a memorial. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that was in response to, I think, Beth's comment about maybe it was a memorial to a young Bigfoot that passed, I think is what she said. But I like that idea of it being a memorial. Yeah, it's clearly they're marking the sign. Hey, everybody come look here. Those circles are guiding you there with the structures. And it's like we've seen before. There's always just keep following the line you're on, because if you see one structure, it seems like you're going to see a lot more. Whether it's the nests, the structures, they always keep each other in a line of sight.
Yep. And you heard Biko, he said something about this. It gave him the feeling of a welcome feeling. He impressed upon that, because it wasn't creepy. Maybe at night it might have felt a little bit creepy, but when he saw in the daytime, he didn't feel like that at all. He had a completely different impression of it all. So I don't know. And that footprint was like 6 inches wide and 13 to 14 inches long. That's a huge, that's a big foot. I mean, seriously. What's your take on this area? What do you guys think about this the whole area that they found there? A feeding area, a gathering area, a soul creature, multiples? What do you think?
I think it's definitely, I mean, you can definitely say that it's got a lot of activity. I'm still not sure that I buy the migration thing. I think it's just got a lot of activity. But regardless, it was a good place to look. And I think it's interesting that they've seen multiple of these kill sites where there's lots of bones over time. That's not normal for any other predator that we know of. I think the rings, obviously that type of stuff has to be created by something with thumbs, which could be human. But then you put in a footprint that large, and there's not a lot of humans on the planet with feet that big.
And walk around barefoot in the woods.
Right. In that location. What are the odds of that? The totality of circumstance tells me that wasn't a human. So what's the purpose of all that? The meetings? I mean, you can speculate, all day as to, is it a shrine, a memorial? Is it just that maybe as they were all leaving, the kid, one of the little ones, went through that spine up there vertical just because they thought it was funny. Who knows? We don't know. But it's a good indication of where to look. So I think they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I do too. That was kind of my take. I would say more than one, It's a feeding area, or the kitchen, if you want to call it that. The dinner table, more than one, I believe. So, yeah, and those markers are there to tell others as they come along that, hey, this is the spot that we gather. And you go back to those other rings that Russell had found, the ones that didn't have all the leaves and stuff on them. They were just woven circles that he found. And then you find the other markings that they had with the hair bundled and tied with a bark, tying them all together into these little bundles of patches of hair. Tribes, different groups, different families. Um, I, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of what I'm leading to, that this was a particular family or tribes area to hang out.
Yeah.
And
Family reunion.
yeah, their little place as they would travel from one area to another. I don't know about the whole migration thing that Bryce was talking about, where they're going from Northern California all the way up to Alaska and back, depending upon the seasons. Maybe that's true, because of the sightings that they had seen early in the season. They talked about the sightings all up and along this basically this forest highway, that they were talking about. But I don't know about all of that, but I do think that
Yeah.
there are family groups.
Yeah, maybe not migration, but maybe there's like more an agreed upon area among all the different tribes of like, hey, this one area is going to be a safer space for our young men and women to go mingle, have a free walkabout, and get their
Yeah.
youthful energy out. They can fight each other like Russell heard. They can court each other.
That's something I didn't think about. Maybe that was
So
some
maybe
young
it's
males area saying, "Hey, honey, look what I got."
maybe it's just kind of a free for all little area where the Bigfoot tribes all agree, like, hey, kind of send your young ones out here to party. And I kind of had a weird feeling, and I don't know if anybody else had this thought of like, okay, I'm sure if there's different tribes of Bigfoot and good Bigfoot, bad Bigfoot, some people have horrible experiences with them. Some come away feeling like, what a beautiful thing. So I think it just depends on the Bigfoot you meet. So what if, like, what Russell heard was there was a Bigfoot that he was tracking that was ready to just take him out, be like, I'm done with this human. And another Bigfoot interceded on the human's behalf and stopped him. Like, you can't. I just had that imaginary scenario in my head of perhaps that, it wasn't two Bigfoot fighting over a female or territory. It was one of those Bigfoot was going to hurt the humans, and another
You
one
need to
was
read
stepped in.
one of Russell's books, his first book.
Oh yeah. Oh,
that
I
he
forgot.
wrote.
Okay, I'll check those out.
His first book that he wrote was that type of scenario.
Oh,
Yes, yeah, Mike, we're going to do that next. But yeah, Linda, thank you. Yes, Russell wrote a couple of books, and one of them talks about that very thing. It was him. He wrote it, and it was about a guy coming back from the military that used to go to the mountains quite often, maybe him, and then got actually held captive by a family, a group, a tribe of Bigfoot.
wow.
And I was
Okay,
reading
I'm
this
gonna
book.
read it.
It's
That
actually
sounds
really
great.
cool. And they would get into fights over this human that they had, and they made the human stay in this little hut that they had found in the woods. It was built by humans, and they kept him captive for a long time. So interesting little story. If you get a chance over, he's written a couple of them, and I don't have them here handy to show you, but the name of it. But just check out Russell Acord and look at his books that he's written.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah, really cool stuff. It's fiction. It's not
No, that sounds like a true story.
Maybe it's his life story, and he just wants to call it fiction, so nobody calls him out or whatever. But
isn't that how a lot of these sci-fi authors get what they saw
maybe
out into the public?
Maybe so. We do have some audio also that I want to get to. This was a clip that I had gathered from the episode where when Dr. Mayer and Russell were working together, and when they finally met up in the woods, and they were kind of closing in on what they thought was this creature that they were tracking that was picked up on thermal, they started to hear a few sounds, and Dr. Mayer is like, shh, listen. to Russell, and he's standing, I don't know, 20, 30 feet away, and he stops. But you hear some sounds. I'm going to let you guys play it. Actually, Mike's going to play it for us, and he's got some analysis on his spectrograph, so we can take a look at that whenever you're ready, Mike. Okay, so let me bring this one up. And
Okay, so this is the audio clip, and I guess I'll play the original version first, but the things that you're gonna be looking for, and again, just real quick, time along the top in seconds, and along the left-hand side is frequency, so in hertz, and it's logarithmic. So first you'll hear a really low growl, and that's very low, below 200 hertz. Looks like it goes all the way down to below 100 hertz. That's very, very low. So there's a growl right here, and then there's a growl here again, and this is the original. So Maria is shushing Russell at the same time that growl happens. And then right in the middle of this clip, right in here, you can see a couple of tick marks right in that zone right there. That sounds like a voice off in the distance. Now, it'll be probably pretty hard to hear here, but I've got a couple of other versions of this where I kind of clean things up or cut some stuff out so you could hear a little bit better. Also, notice along the bottom here, there's a kind of a fairly regular marking. Sounds like a heartbeat. So I don't know if it's a microphone on one of their chests, but it definitely sounded like a heartbeat to me. But anyway, yeah. But I'll play this first, and hopefully it comes across okay, and then I'll show you the versions where I kind of cleaned up and cut out some of the extra noise, and we'll go from there. And nod if you can hear it.
Listen, stop. Russ, stop for a sec. I'm hearing something right over there. Did you hear that? It sounded like a growl.
Okay, so now let me switch to this version here. Okay, so you can see there's some stuff missing now. I just cut that out because it wasn't what we wanted to listen to, and it was a little bit distracting. You'll be able to hear that growl a little bit better here and here. And then I've sort of amplified this, but I have one more version of just this by itself, because again, it's still kind of hard to hear. It's better on where I've got it isolated, but let me give this a shot. Start from the beginning.
Russ, stop for a sec. I'm hearing something right over there.
Okay. So the rumbles are maybe a little bit hard to hear because they're just so low. You got to really either have earbuds, headphones on, or a subwoofer to be able to replicate that low of a sound. Now, this was during the fight, or this episode?
No, this was during the time when they were closing in on the thermal image from the drone.
Okay. All right. And then last is just this voice that you hear. And I've got this looped, and I'll let it play for a little bit. I don't know what that is. Now, I mean, who knows? It could be one of the crew back in the distance, behind them or something. I don't know, but
Walkie-talkie.
if they were out there running, yeah, it could have been a walkie-talkie. We don't know. But you can definitely see it on the original.
Mhm.
Now, Seth, you kind of started down a path, and I wanted to bring this up because as long as we're gonna bring in the woo, we might as well bring in
Let's
the woo.
go
Let's go
there.
ahead and go deep.
Okay.
So there's not a lot of other apex predators that something the size of Sasquatch is going to be concerned about, given how big and strong they are. We've seen some displays of the things that they can do and how much they can lift. So even a grizzly bear, I don't know that I'm going to say that a grizzly bear is even going to risk um, its own life trying to fend off one of these. But there is something else out there that growls like that doesn't get along with Sasquatch at all. It's also a cryptid. Dogman. Seth, you're on mute.
So Dogman, okay, I'm pretty ignorant of Dogman. I always thought Dogman was like just another word for Bigfoot.
No, not at all.
He's is this why Bigfoot hates dogs and kills dogs?
Oh, maybe so. Maybe they're enemies.
And why that one dog and what was in the mountains of Kentucky that was like a big old bloodhound was like, I'm not going up that mountain. And the trainer was like, I've never seen him not follow a scent.
Mhm.
Oh,
yeah, no,
wow.
Dogman's not at
Okay.
all like it's literally a large, looks like a large wolf that can stand up on its hind legs.
So that's what they saw in Skinwalker Ranch.
Correct.
Oh, sorry guys. Yeah, forgive me. I'm an emotional.
It's all right. That's okay. That's what we're here for. A little education. It doesn't get reported as much. It definitely has a much darker feel to it. It's usually pretty sinister in the reports that I've heard.
It was a Bigfoot Dogman fight. That's what you're saying it could have been.
Oh, now wait a second. We didn't quite say that, but you never know.
You never know. I mean, what else would it be fighting?
Mhm.
What else could push a Bigfoot around and impale it on a branch like that?
Mhm.
If that was the blood that they got, it came back as, basically 99% human. So I don't know. One other wild theory to throw out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dogman, one of the reports I heard was from a judge who said the best description he could give is it looked just like Anubis. So how long have these things been around? Definitely a dog head, pointy ears. Not a lot of people mention a tail, or they're focused on a lot of other stuff besides a tail, if that's the case. Legs are not normal. Their legs bend like a dog's would, but they're able to stand fully upright and run at speed on two legs as well as four.
There's a full moon tonight.
So, at the beginning of the show, Jeff said, I think, I might believe in Bigfoot now after this season. And that was kind of something that like I was thinking about as well with the season finale of like on the whole like ontological shock for people. And, for some people, it's going to be like really hard to accept that something you've been told and thought was totally make believe is real. And how does that change how you view everything else? Because like for me, it's been a long journey of like when I was younger, being very overtly Christian and strong in my relationship with God. And then I had a lot of doubts and then got really into UFOs and aliens. And I start to accept these people's stories as well as evidence. And then I find myself going, okay, well, if skinwalkers are real, because I sat and talked to, people that tell me, from scientists to Native Americans that say, hey, there's something here, so, okay, if skinwalkers are real, then Bigfoot's real. Now I'm thinking, okay, well, if Bigfoot's real, why is it so hard for me to accept certain things within my own personal, religion or belief system? So it's been really, yes, there are moments where I have that feeling of like, whoa, and maybe a little bit of dread and overwhelming sensation of like the world is a big, scary place because there's so much we don't understand. But then it turns into something a little bit more beautiful where it brings me home back to this like spiritual, where I find myself being a lot more accepting of others' stories and my own family's stuff. So I don't know. Does that kind of resonate with you guys at all?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so it's like it's really easy to go, oh, that's a bunch of hooey, but no, like there's, how long have these things been here? It's not just
Well,
Right.
look at the, and we've talked about that on this podcast before, Mike and I and you, and we've discussed the fact that all these other, you go back to different indigenous peoples from all these different countries around the world. And I think like every single one of them has some sort of a story of a Bigfoot type creature interacting or being another tribe that was near their own tribe. I mean, all of them, and in countries all over the world. So uh, you can't just simply dismiss that. So how far back does he go? I really don't have a clue. Um, and it's amazing, but like you said, that there's far more going on in this world than our senses, our sight and smell and sound is telling us.
yeah.
But and then yeah, look at the fact we got a blood moon tonight. We got
Yeah. I was not
tonight's
only
night. If you want to be out looking
Oh,
for
man.
Yeah,
Bigfoot,
right.
go out there right now. Get out there. It's dark.
Yeah, I was an atheist about so much, God, everything, anything woo, it's make believe. You're having your own subjective hallucination or what have you. But I think it's like for me, I was most confident about it not existing when I knew nothing about the topic. Once I learned more about the topic, your confidence of, oh, there's nothing there, goes way down because you can't seriously have that position of there's nothing there. There's
Right.
something. What it is, it can be up for debate or different interpretation. But
Right. Mhm.
man, Dogman, I'm excited,
Yep.
Mike.
East
Thank
of
you.
Bray Road that's a good suggestion to
Yeah, I
to
saw
check
that,
that out.
in the
Yeah.
chat.
Yep.
Thank you.
There's another the confessionals. Go to the YouTube and look up the confessionals.
Yep.
That is a trying to think of the guy's name. One of the guys that
Tony Markle.
yes,
Tony Markle.
Tony
Yep.
Merkel and Christian Roper, who's a friend of mine. I've met
Oh, yeah, I know Christian Roper.
Christian
Yeah.
Roper and worked with Tony Merkel and his team.
Beyond Oak Island,
Um,
fellow Texan.
Kentucky. You're looking for Dogman. So that's a interesting.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's called it's called the Confessionals. So check that out as well. That's pretty interesting. That book
Okay.
that Tony, there you go, right there. Yeah, he was at Phenomicon last year. Yeah.
Man.
Yep. So that's a really interesting documentary they did. The books by Russell Acord are the Bitterroot series. It's called. He had one in 2012 called Footprints of a Legend, and then the one in 2016 was called Bigfoot and the Tripwire. And so both of those are, and they're fictional books of his that he's written, but they're real. I haven't read the second one. I read the 2012, the original one, and it's really a good read. The Bitterroot series. Check those out if you want a good read from him. The one thing too, and then we'll get your final thoughts on the season. That one thing that I'm very happy about, and again, I hope they show us a follow-up and give us some details. They did that a couple of years ago. We got an episode like
One
months
extra.
later.
Yep.
Or a month later, I don't know, weeks later or something. We got another episode that was kind of a follow-up with some of their analysis. But this right here is what I'm excited about. The team is continuing to process and analyze the wealth of findings and has left long-term surveillance up in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That gives me hope. And that's why I say I think that day is coming when we're going to see some solid evidence of this creature existing. but we better see this continuing and to analyze the wealth of findings.
Yes.
It better be forthcoming.
Yeah.
That's all I
Yeah.
got to say. But yeah, this season has been another one. I think that each of the last few seasons have been getting better and better as we go along. The evidence that they're finding, the videos in the thermal imaging and the
LiDAR.
the lidar, yes, the lidar, the images in the cave from the lidar that was on that dog, robot dog. I mean, if you I'm really finding it very difficult to doubt the existence of Bigfoot after all of this. I really, really am. It's really getting hard for me to continue to say, nope, nope, it doesn't exist. He's, you know, I think I've fallen off that fence. I kept saying I'm on the fence, I'm on the fence, I'm on the fence, but I think I'm really falling off that fence because there's just too much evidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. I've got, I fell off the fence pretty early with the show, but and just watching all the documentaries I could consume, and when I first got into it after season 1 was over, and I was like, I need more Bigfoot. And for me now, it's kind of okay, I know it's real. I trust people and the stories, but what is it? Why is it? From where? How are we related? What's our relationship? And then even like, what's the point of proving its existence? How does that change? Is now the time, like this? Is this kind of like what I was talking about with UFO disclosure earlier? Is this just the time where this was meant for us to finally open our eyes to everything around us? I hope so, but then I'm also a little scared at times too of what that means for the rest of the world. Like, I don't know, but let's rip the Band-Aid off.
Exactly. I think it's time to rip the band clean off.
We're ready for the truth.
We are ready for the truth.
And whether the government just comes out and says, hey, we know they're real, we've had some interactions with them, but we don't really know what they are. I would trust that more than them being like, no, they're not real at all. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Yeah. Let's see. I can't say I'm a non-believer anymore. Maya says, Maya, thank you. I was talking about the travel
Maya.
you sent me. This is awesome. I really love that thing. That Monroe Institute podcast that I saw, and I've only listened to one. I just happened to somebody send it to me and said, Jeff, you really need to check this out. It was called it was episode 38. And I kept making my words wrong here because I didn't know what to make out of morphic resonance theory and the universal life force with Rupert Sheldrake, Sheldrake, Rupert Sheldrake. Morphic resonance theory and the universal life force. So it was episode number 38 of the Monroe Institute podcast. Check that out if you really. It was a good one, and I was put the earbuds on while I was working and listened to the entire. It's about an hour long. It was really good, but man, I tell you, it takes you into an area where, and it goes right back to what you were saying earlier about Survivor Man and the stuff that he had picked up through that. I want to say telepathy.
Yeah.
And if animals and us can communicate in such a way like that, then why can't a Bigfoot type creature do the same thing with themselves and with us? I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah. Final thoughts on the season, guys. I know where you pretty much gave yours, Seth.
Oh, yeah. Great season. I love that it gets us talking about stuff like this and that I get to be on the show with you guys. Thank y'all.
Yep.
Fantastic season. Great use of tech. Once again, always impressed with them changing things up, using different things a lot of times. I really, really hope they can do analysis and an analysis report out show. But if not, let's get another season.
Yes. I think there will be another season. I think there's been enough good evidence that people, and again, when it comes to another season, it all comes down to this right here.
Mhm.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's the way it is. You know that Russell and Dr. Mayer and all of them are not going to stop. And I say the same thing about Oak Island. You know how Rick Lagina is not going to give up until he has the answers. And I think that Russell's the same way, and I think Dr. Mayer is the same way. She is a primatologist, and she wants to get some answers on this. I think she's been given enough data that she will continue this, whether there's a TV show or not. How that's done, we don't know, but I think there will be another season because I think this one, each one is getting better and better, and I think this one was a great one, and they gathered some really good stuff. Why people could look at this, I really don't believe it's scripted. I know that this season, and I was a little critical of some of the things that happened this season, and we talked about that, like some of the I called them theatrics, rappelling down the waterfall.
No, that's the most. That's the best place to repel.
Yeah, or the filling
I
their
don't know.
bags, the bag with air and floating down the river with these things. I didn't think some of that was needed. I thought it was more for the show than the actual investigation. But whatever, I think it's what they did. But besides all of that, like Mike said, the tech and the way they approach this, I think is second to none.
Oh yeah.
As far as the way they go after this. And I think they are going to get some answers. I think we're going to see something pretty profound coming. So Beth said, yep, my favorite season so far. Amazing season with Expedition Bigfoot and a fabulous podcast. Thank you, Eva. Appreciate that. Love this season. Past 2 episodes were incredible. Thank you for tonight's discussion. Yeah. Well, we really appreciate each and every one of you joining us here tonight. We really do. If you like the content of the show we did here for you tonight, as my son said, give us a thumbs up and let us know how we're doing. Click that like button and let us know how we're doing. And tell your friends. I know this is the one place where you can come and talk about all this stuff. And you're with like-minded folks. Going and talking to your friends about it. Now, on the other hand, they might be going, what? Big what? You really believe in Bigfoot? Yeah, they kind of glaze over, and you're that person with the weird head all of a sudden.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll tell you what, if you haven't yet, click that subscribe button, click that notification bell, because as soon as Mike, I, or Seth gets word of this another show coming out with some details, we're going to be back on here, and we're going to be covering it. So you're going to want to know when we go through and do our analysis of that. So make sure you click subscribe, click that notification bell, and you'll be all set. And don't forget, we got Skinwalker Ranch. I'm hearing some weird stuff. Skinwalker Ranch, 16 episodes. What?
Wow.
June 1st in 16 episodes, according to Brandon Fugel, that just came out on his Instagram or something, or X, or I was talking about it. That's crazy. And we're going to cover every single one of them. And we have Eric Bard, Pete Kelsey coming on April 3rd. So you're going to want to be here for that one as well. Thank you, folks, for being here with us tonight. We really appreciate it. And for Mike and Seth and Linda, we'll say good night, and we'll catch you next time right here on the J Free 906 podcast. Good night.